Hi guys. So we're going to look at brain development in adolescence. So the interesting thing about kind of adolescence, at least cognitively, is we've entered into kind of Erickson's last stage. So we can make pretty impressive intellectual decisions. We can think hypothetically. We can use allegory and metaphor. We can just think abstractly. But at the same time, our brain development is not fully there when it comes to our impulsive decisions, our ability to resist peer pressure, and just our overall maturity. So our brain has not fully developed until kind of our mid-20s, early 20s. We don't have a hard and fast day, once again, of like when your brain has fully developed, and we'll go into this. So this is a quote from Lawrence Steinberg, who literally wrote the book on adolescence. It's literally called Adolescence. He's at Temple University, also works in Chicago as well. Lawrence Steinberg, and he literally wrote the book, and I use a lot of his work when we're talking about cognition in children and particularly adolescents. So the prefrontal cortex. So there is a picture of it. I'm just gonna sound funny to say. I lost my mind. I actually had a little brain that I would take into classes and lectures, and I think one of my children has absconded with it. I do not have it anymore, so I lost my mind, I lost my brain. So I would usually kind of show it, but here is a picture. So your prefrontal cortex is right here. It is the front part of the brain, and the biggest thing to remember about brain development is still loading in adolescence. So it starts from the back, and it moves to the front. So in adolescence, it's there, but it's not quite there. We're missing we're not missing it. It still exists. The brain part is still there, but it's still working on connecting those neural pathways. Gray matter is moving and shifting and changing. So we don't have a lot of the maturity in that brain. It is responsible for a lot of your behavior, your personality, your decision-making, moderating social behavior, all things that adolescents not known for because this part of the brain is still maturing through our teen years. So cognitively, we can see a lot of really amazing things. I mean, you guys know math and stats better than I do. Man, I lost that. Those neural connections have been pruned. They are no longer there because it's not an interest of mine anymore. I know what I need to know in order to read empirical research, but I hate actually doing research. So I've lost a lot of that understanding. Teens probably have a lot of that. When I've talked to my nephews and nieces, they have this impressive intellectual decision making. But then when it comes to like social behavior and stuff like that, I'll just be like, what are you? So that is the teen life is like, oh my God, what are you doing? Because of this emotional regulation, because they're still developing their limbic system, which is like deep in the brain. I wish I had my mind again. I could show you guys. It had two lobes to it. I would take it apart, and deep within our brain, right in here, is our limbic system. And this one is not yet fully mature, but it tries to stand in for that frontal lobe, which is really not mature yet. So it is trying to help you process and manage emotions, which is really, really hard. I don't do a great job of that every single day of my life. I get upset, I have feelings, I get frustrated like everybody, but it's heightened because the limbic system is trying to kind of stand in for that underdeveloped frontal lobes as well. So it is still maturing, but it's also trying to help adolescents make those big jumps when it comes to like informational processing, because this all kind of happens at the back of our brain. Another thing that kind of happens is our parasympathetic system, which we all have, which is going to continue for the rest of our life. I consider this our lizard brain. This is the part of the brain that, like, when we were, out on, the tundras and the Sahara and stuff, and a saber-toothed tiger was going to come get us, this was the part of the brain that kicks in. So you either fight, you flight, or you freeze. You might do all three. You might have one that you're more inclined to. It might depend on the situation. There have been situations where I've literally like froze. And then there was another time I was on a hike with my dad and my sister, and like wasps attacked us, and I literally ran for my life. I like ditched my dad ditched my little sister, it's like 5 years younger. I made it back to the car, which is like a mile away in like 5 minutes, fastest mile I've ever done in my life. And I got to the car and I couldn't get in because I didn't have the key, because my dad had the key and he was like 3/4 of a mile away trying to get my sister away from these wasps. But just because my brain kicked in, I didn't even know what had happened. So teenagers are often using that limbic system more than they're using the prefrontal cortex, and that is leading to these impulsive decisions, this fight, flight, or freeze as well, when we're trying to use our sympathetic system to make those kind of decisions. Executive functioning should have happened earlier. Some people will never have executive functioning. I think of this as the conductor of the brain. This is like the overall kind of, they're like the president, the conductor of your brain. They're able to make, this is all systems wide, but it's being able to regulate decision making, being able to plan ahead, to have judgment, expression of your emotions, and impulse control. So it's not fully mature until you're kind of mid-20s, but you should have already started to be developing this. So in middle childhood even, you're being asked to do homework like our mission projects that involves a lot of planning, decision making, judgment, same with sports, same with a lot of things that we ask children to do. So they're being asked to kind of develop this. Some people will not develop executive functioning skills in their life because of their brain development, because of their cognitive ability. But these are the things that you should be able to do. As you're entering into kind of emerging adulthood, you should be getting better and better and better at self-regulation, at having memory, emotions, effort, processing speed. Dr. Bruce Perry, who looks at a lot of trauma, notices that children who have been exposed to a lot of adverse childhood experiences or trauma in their life typically don't have good executive functioning either. It's something that we can start to help you work through. If we get you young enough, your brain is still plastic enough, we can still kind of work with these executive functioning skills. If we kind of recognize your trauma and are able to help you kind of work through it and restructure your brain, change some of those neural pathways as well. So we are still focusing on gray matter, and we are still researching this heavily in adolescents. So we're always sticking them under MRIs and CAT scan machines and things like that to take a look at their brain, what part lights up, what is happening, because we kind of know what's happening, but we're still like on the forefront of this brain development in adolescents, because they're so puzzling about how they can be so smart but so stupid at the same time. Smart when it comes to actual cognitive ability, but then that impulse control and all those other things we've talked about because of the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system are so difficult. So why do we think this is happening? Why do we think that this maturity is kind of so slow to load? And we are thinking that gray matter is not lost. We used to think that it was lost. We used to think that in adolescence, like this brain matter, which is right here in this picture, so kind of the outside of your brain, all of the wrinkles when you look at a brain, were kind of being lost. But now we're just seeing that it's reorganized, we believe. So your gray matter is changing and it's actually decreasing, but we think that it's being reorganized in order to make those big jumps that you need to once you hit adolescence and emerging adulthood. So imagine that you are kind of changing your actual brain structure. You have hormones coursing through your body. And you are trying to deal with like gigantic life decisions about college and relationships, working with your family, getting a job. That's a combination for difficult life experiences. That's hard. I would never go back and do adolescence. I mean, sometimes, people will say, oh, if I could do it over again, everything I'd learned. Well, but then we'd have to go back into our adolescent bodies where our minds are kind of restructuring and reorganizing and maturing. We have all of these hormones that we're not used to anymore. We're trying to know who we are. We're trying to know who other people are, have first relationships, first jobs. All of those firsts are still happening. That's a recipe and a combination for a lot going on in an adolescent's life. Drugs and alcohol, I'm just going to touch on this because it's not good for your developing brain. We don't want to smoke marijuana when we're pregnant because 10% crosses the placental barrier. That's no bueno. We know that drugs and alcohol have effects on the developing brain, and that's why, once again, government has listened to science as far as like safety in brains, and that's why we don't want people drinking until their mid-20s. when their brain is a little bit more developed. Once again, we don't want to hurt it. We don't want to add to that soup of hormones and brain development and firsts in life and identity development by also sticking a lot of alcohol and drugs in there. We know that children do this primarily because of trauma. A lot of times people who have addiction issues and things like that, they might be more prone to it, but also it might be a response or self-medicating because of issues in their own life. Or issues that they had when they were younger and they're trying to take care of themselves in the best way that they can. So I don't stigmatize it. I know that it happens, but we really want to support adolescents in not doing alcohol and drugs because it's not good for their brains, and we want to protect those little brains. If you start drinking when you are younger, then you are more likely to get alcohol dependence when you're younger as well. We also know that parents play a huge role in this as well. And we also know that in the United States, we have a really big binge drinking problem. And our culture kind of prioritizes that as fun and things like that. And, it's probably something that we can think of on a societal and a cultural level. If we're using Rothenbrenner, once again, what are our attitudes, beliefs, and values about drinking? It's something that we do kind of prioritize, especially in college, going crazy, taking the edge off. So we have that kind of supports this idea of binge drinking, but at the same time, it's really bad for your brain and you shouldn't be doing it until you're older. A lot of times, once again, it comes from trauma and things like that because you want that dopamine, you need kind of that painkiller, you need that kind of hormone in your brain to help you kind of process the things that might be helping to you. As you take too much drugs, so risk taking, you will start having to take more of this, and you need to start engaging in other behaviors either to keep that habit going or to replace the feelings that you had from just having a glass of wine or a beer. Now you need to have more, you need to do other things in order to get more of that dopamine production because it just doesn't satisfy it anymore. And then you have that need for it as well. If we were going to be looking at the factors, this is the thing in pre-seed, proceed that most people have the most problem with. This is 303. We are looking more towards the evaluation part, but it's good to always know our factors. And this is what I've noticed people have a harder time with. So if I was going to be looking at the factors, these are the 3 factors, but they are not in order. So let's start with this one. These are decision-making and economic or other circumstances relating directly to individual behavior in the situation or opportunity to consume a drug. Availability and access to counseling centers, educational classes, and informational resources such as books and websites. If we were in class, I would be like, who knows? Is it P, R, or E? It is E. It's an enabling factor. All right, what's the middle one? Knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs. If I ever say knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs, it is our P factor or predisposing. These are knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs related to drug abuse and addiction. Knowledge and beliefs concerning the hazard, the individual's own perceptions of a drug's ability to harm, like, oh, it's natural, it's made out of hops and wheat, can't hurt me. Yeah, well, when you combine all of those things together and you put it in a developing brain, it can harm it. Moral beliefs about and attitudes about drug consumption or drink consumption, individual social circumstances and prospects as well. And then our last one, we've gotten P and E. So this would be reinforcing factors is the very last one. Environmental, social, and economic constituencies. Reinforcement, a form of giving or withholding approval, praise, prestige, esteem, or disapproval, typically from parents. Earning money or acquiring property as a result of drug-related income. So all of the things that you can kind of get from peers or teachers or parents would most likely be in this fact a reinforcing factor. So that's just a little bit more support on our pre-factors, because I know some of you are concurrently in 302, 303, or some of you took a 303 in a past semester and you're trying to remind yourself what it is. All right, that is it for this week. You are going to watch this. You are going to watch Sarah Jane Blackman, who is actually like a neurosurgeon or neuro researcher and has an adorable British accent, and she's going to talk to you more about brain development. And then we are going to look at some factors again online in our discussion boards. All right, I'll see you guys online.